Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord, and of course, we had to have Mark Zinno on to talk about the Falcons draft, and it was an exciting night. I don't care. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of everything that happened last night, but if you're a Falcons fan, you have to at least admit it was exciting. What's your initial takeaways on what happened last night with the Dirty Birds?
There's nothing not to like at this point. I mean, they finally drafted a Georgia player, so we can put that argument to bed. They drafted another SEC player. They both were on defense. They moved into the first round. Remember, I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, they should trade all the rest of their picks for another first-round pick because Fontenot only seems to get the first-round picks right. He's been terrible on day 2. He's been so-so on day 3. But for the most part, I think you have to consider last night a big win for the Falcons. Look, we don't know what these guys are going to turn out to be. There's certainly some sort of negatives about these players, as there is every player coming out in the NFL draft. But for the most part, it looks like if these guys are impact players, that 3 to 5 years from now, you're going to have a really good defense.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you say about Terry Fontenot, some of the craziest drafts. Well, I want to talk about Terry first, and then we could probably dig in a little bit deeper to Jalon and JPJ. But this guy's not boring. This guy is not boring. I mean, 3 of the craziest picks in my lifetime all happened under Terry Fontenot. Kyle Pitts, highest drafted tight end ever. And then Michael Penix last year after signing Kirk Cousins. And then this year, I would just say the trading of a first-round pick and jumping 20 spots for James Pearce Jr. I mean, unbelievable. And I hear it all the time. Conviction. That's what I hear. Got conviction.
Well, I mean, conviction and smarts don't always go together. Yeah. So there is that. I'll defend him. The Penix thing was more of the owner than it was him. Okay. Let's just be clear about that. That was more Arthur Blank making them draft a quarterback as opposed to them actually doing the right thing.
You know that?
Different discussion. Oh, yeah. Arthur Blank put out the edict. They were not going to be in that same situation.
Really?
Ryan, yes. That came from Arthur. So he was not going to allow that whole Matt Ryan no backup plan thing to happen again. But, oh, by the way, he caused that situation. So, again, we don't need to have that discussion. Let's live in the here and now. To your point, yeah. I mean, look, Fontenot even said in his pre-draft press conference that I was at that, he's labeled as one of the more aggressive GMs out there. That's more likely to trade up and try to get as many good players as possible. So he kept his word to that. Again, I'll say this much, that whether you think it was wise or not to give up the first round pick, to give up as much as they did, if you're Terry Fontenot, guess what? I don't care, because if these moves don't work out, I'm not making the first round pick next year anyway, because I'm out of a job. So the bottom line here is that if they miss the playoffs, Terry Fontenot likely is gone. I can't see a scenario where Arthur Blank allows the GM to miss the playoffs for 6 straight seasons and then still keep a job. Right? Like that's, that would be unheard of. So it's not his first round pick at this point anyway.
Yeah. And that brings us back to a conversation that we had, throughout the offseason, right? Where is Terry Fontenot GMing for his job based on his free agency moves? Like, we all thought that would be the case coming into the offseason. We're like, he's going to make some big swings. I mean, he's got to get to the playoffs this year. There's no way he's not, he's still the GM this time next year. And then we see the free agency class, and we're like, okay, maybe he's not. And then it's like, oh, yes, he is. And this is the exact kind of move that we were kind of scared of, because you get a guy who's a lame duck who has to get to the playoffs. He doesn't give a crap about 2026. No. And that's exactly the point. So I'm going to defend Terry Fontenot in that this is exactly what I would do. And if you got conviction on a guy, you shouldn't care about 2026. And the only person that, if you want to put blame on the fact that we traded so much, it's not on Terry. It's not on Terry. It's the fact that you let him make decisions like this, because he probably shouldn't be in this position in the first place. So I give Terry just his role in all of this. I don't know how you couldn't be happy. I mean, Jalon Walker was a guy that I've been in love with since the start. We had Rusty Manziel on the show, and he was like, if the Falcons don't take Jalon Walker and he's there, they're going to regret it for their entire life. I mean, this guy's eyes lit up. I mean, his eyes were in the back of his head talking about Jalon Walker.
I tweeted last night, I'm like, if the Falcons pass on Jalon Walker here, the entire fan base might have a collective conniption. And I was like, quote tweeting, I'm like, I'm kind of here for it. Like, I kind of want to see it happen.
Yeah.
I was here for the interesting storyline and the groans. I'm in New York right now for family stuff, but I would have heard the groans from Atlanta if they had passed on him last night. So, but good for the Falcons. Look, by all accounts, you were able to kill multiple birds with one stone. You went to the position of highest need, that was pass rusher. You got it from the school that everybody needed and everybody wanted, and you made your team better. So you killed multiple birds with one stone here in drafting Jalon Walker.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of these prospects are guys that, I can live with them if it doesn't work out. Where, when we drafted Kyle Pitts, it was one of those instances where it was like, you guys better hope it hits because this is a weird pick. This is, you're zigging. Everyone else is zagging. This is one of those, and I think a lot of Falcons fans feel this way, that if these guys don't work out, both of them or either of them, I think Falcons fans will be like, all right, well, it's kind of like the Matthew Judon trade where, like, it didn't work out. It was a bad trade, but at least you were swinging. I can appreciate you going to the dugout swinging. Don't look at strike three. Swing the bat,
Here is the one thing, and this will be the bucket of cold water on all of this. How much do you trust Jeff Ulbrich and the Falcons coaches to develop players, right? Because, again, is there an argument to say that Jeff Ulbrich made Vic Beasley for 1 year and made Deion Jones for 2 years, and then it all felt like I don't know the answer to that? What I do know is that if these guys don't make it, it'll probably be because they're just not NFL players. If they are okay and not great, then I would lean more towards the coaches didn't maximize their talent.
See, I think that can be applied to Jalon Walker, but I don't think that can be applied to James. Like, Jalon Walker's ceiling is, I don't want to say entirely dependent, but a lot of it has to do with Ulbrich and Raheem Morris's ability to get him to attack.
Yeah.
And James Pearce Jr., I think to a lesser degree, can really, put him on the edge and let him pin his ears back, so to speak. So while you do still have to develop the intricacies of rushing the passer, that is that, chess match with a tackle. But, like, to a certain degree, Jalon Walker, it is really dependent on us figuring out a role for him.
And that's the point. Like, again, I don't want to get too sort of inside baseball, in this case, inside football here. Mm-hmm. But, in reality, you drafted an off-ball linebacker at 15.
Yeah, listen, I don't think that's at all the hope. I think, it's a make no mistake about it. They want him.
I say that, Chase, I just, like, to Alex's point, like, how is he going to be used?
Yeah.
What is the way they try to exploit him? Do they want him to be more of a guy off the edge, or is he going to be playing next to Caden Ellis and dropping back in coverage, or, just staying at the second level until a ball carrier gets to him kind of deal? Like,
there should be a rule in Flowery Branch. Day one, if Jalon Walker is moving backwards, bad. Don't do it. Throw it out of the playbook. Whatever, that play was, or coverage or scheme, whatever, it's out. And Jalon Walker's got to be on the field every single snap. So if he's not moving forward in every single capacity, throw it out of the playbook.
Yeah, I feel like that is the plan.
Yeah. They were hugging. Jeff Ulbrich looked like the happiest man on earth.
I think they were shocked that, like most of us, that Jalon Walker fell. I'm so intrigued by James Pearce Jr. though, because this is a guy that a year ago this time, everyone pegged him as at worst a top 5 draft pick, potentially the number 1 pick. And then there's questions over this concerns. And it goes back to that thing. And this was brought up by several people, several NFL insiders last night, where Raheem Morris had a big part in this pick. And Raheem Morris believes that they went the day before the draft to his house with his mother, sat him down, and like basically looked in his eyes and to see what he was all about, if these character concerns are legit. And Raheem Morris obviously made the decision that they believe that his influence will be positive enough to get the most out of James Pearce Jr. Because when you talk about physical freaks, and I know we've had the Vic Beasley situation, he is one of one. This guy is 6'5", 250 pounds that runs a 4.47. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, which again begs the question why he didn't go earlier in the draft.
Yeah, well, it's the love of football thing, which those two things work out two ways, and this is why he's the ultimate boomer bust prospect. You hear these concerns, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that should have never been a concern. He's a Hall of Famer, or he sucks. Like, this is why he's the ultimate boomer bust prospect, in my opinion. Like, I don't see James Pearce Jr. coming here and being a 5 or 6 sack guy for the next 6 years. He's either going to be out of the league or just unbelievable.
That is the new, sort of, like new idea of what you, outside of injury concerns and character concerns, do you love football, right? Like, that is, and NIL has changed that. Some of these guys have already gotten a bag. Some of these guys have already been paid. Some of these guys don't have to grind as much as they used to be able to earn their way, because college has already paid them. So from that standpoint, it's like, these guys get lazy when they get to the neck because it's just a little bit more money than they already have. It's not enough for them to garner to want it that badly, and it gets exposed.
And in that same vein, piggybacking off of that, you don't have Grady Jarrett to kind of look next to and be like, hey, man, that's 10-year vet Grady Jarrett. He is, if Tommy Novus is Mr. Falcon, he's right there. He's not saying anything, but you want to perform for – we don't really have that. We don't really have that anywhere. Obviously Kirk Cousins never had the cachet. Michael Penix is just now first-year start. Like, the longest tenured guys we've got is Iron Man, Quiet Man, Jake Matthews, who, you want to perform well for, but, like, is he really barking at people? I don't think so. So, the concerns about James Pearce Jr. in terms of, the love of football fall squarely on Raheem Morris and this coaching staff in terms of getting the most out of it.
I agree. Let's go to break. I want to take a look coming up after the break about the future. Where do we stand? What do we need? We got a couple more picks in the draft, and potentially after the draft, there could be some moves made by the Falcons. Welcome back into Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord and Mark Zinno. Mark, with the move that the Falcons made last night, they basically said the definition of we have to make the playoffs, because obviously if they miss the playoffs, they don't have their 2026 first round pick. This is an absolute disaster. So I want to take kind of a look at where you think what needs to happen next for that to happen, because I don't think we are there yet. And I also want to bring up the elephant in the room that I think you will enjoy. And that's the fact that they are really trusting a hell of a lot in Michael Penix Jr. Because we all love him. He's the reason we have hope here in Atlanta. But to just say, hey, I'm all in on this guy that much that we are going to make the playoffs, and maybe he didn't have a choice either way, that's a lot of pressure on a first-year starter.
I'll add this, too. If somehow Terry Fontenot pulls off a trade for Kirk Cousins, he'll get an A+ grade for the offseason from me. Again, Kirk Cousins is not going to be on the roster week 1. I'll continue to say it. I believe them when they say that they are willing to do it. That doesn't mean I agree that it's a smart move. And I don't think he'll be here. I think something will materialize at some point and they'll get him out of Dodge. If he could do it before the end of the draft, and the only reason to tune in to the NFL draft here on Friday night is see if the Browns take a quarterback with Shedeur Sanders at 2, because if they don't, then maybe the Kirk Cousins door is still open for them in some size, way, shape, or form. And oh, by the way, and I tweeted this out earlier in the week, I'll go back to it again. I even asked Terry Fontenot about it at the press conference. They refute the report that the Falcons are asking for $20 million of Kirk Cousins' salary to be paid. That's totally contradictory to the, quote, the money's already been spent philosophy that they have told us, right? If the money's already been spent, then stop asking for it back. Just get rid of the guy and move on and take whatever compensation you get. So let's wait and see if he can pull off a trade here for Cousins, because it would be the absolute win. To your point about making the playoffs, yeah. I mean, I would suspect that they're drafting a right tackle here on day 2. They're not keeping Caleb McGarry long-term, right? That's not the solution. In theory, could Jake move over and play right and they could draft a left? Yes, that could happen. The reason why they don't do it now is because McGarry can't play left. He'd be a god-awful turnstile on at left tackle. So he has to stay at right, but that's protecting Michael Penix's blind side. So if you're putting all this weight on Penix to be able to be the guy that's going to make everything better while your defense is still growing over the next 2 seasons, right? Because, look, could James Pearce and Jalon Walker be great? Yeah. Is the chances they're going to be great in year 1? Like, statistically, probably slim. I mean, Jared Verse didn't even lead his team in sacks this year for how good he was, right? Like, so it's going to take another year or two for those stats to start to pop, where you think this guy's like, wow, this is a generational pass rusher we have for the next 10 years. So it usually doesn't happen in year one. But I bring it all back to, they've got to figure out a way to keep Penix upright. And McGarry's not the long-term solution there. So I think they go offensive line. And then, is there a receiver they take a flyer on later in the 5th or 6th round? Maybe, because they still need some more depth there. I could see it happening. So I think that kind of rounds out the draft. I think they're going to stick to, in this draft, the very safe plays, what everybody consensus thinks that they should do based off of need, to quiet the fan base and go, okay, we did everything that we were supposed to do according to you guys, even though they agree it's the right thing to do, but they sort of give into it. And now it's a question if it all pans out the way it's supposed to. These guys get to keep their jobs for another year.
So let me see if I've got you. You would rank it offensive tackle, swing tackle, somebody to develop to potentially take over right tackle or left tackle, one of them. And then for round 3, which is pick 101, very end of the 3rd round. And then maybe a flyer on a wide receiver. Nothing else on the defense.
I mean, look.
All right, let me say this, and then I'll give you a chance to rebut.
Let's just say, as in terms of replacement players, let's just say at this point that Walker and Pearce are above in year 1. They're above the average replacement player, not high above, just above, or they're the equal level to a replacement player at their position. How much better do you think the defense is going to be statistically? It's not. You're not going from 25th.
Well, I still think. Let me say this, and then I'll get to my point. I still think that regardless of whoever the Falcons picked, it wasn't going to be a difference maker day one. The biggest difference from last year to this year was always going to be, Jimmy Lake and that bona fide something. That guy, we had communication issues in the secondary in the last week of the season with 3 All-Pros in the secondary. I mean, that's a coaching issue. So that was always going to be the biggest difference from last year to this year. So I do agree with you there. But while I have to disagree that, the secondary and the interior defensive line still needs help. And maybe you can get some guys off the street in free agency after the draft. We saw them do that last year with Justin Simmons.
But it was a very heavy, there was going to be a ton of, there's a lot more day 3 picks in this pool of draft players, which means there's going to be a lot of undrafted guys that they're going to look at. He did acknowledge that in his pre-draft presser. So,
listen, we need a run-stuffing interior defender. You can find those guys just, bouncing at your local bar. So you don't have to spend a 3rd-round pick on that guy. But a cornerback, per se, we still need a slot guy. I don't want to see D. Alfred running around out there.
I'm convinced that based on this draft, the Falcons are way more all-in than I thought before the draft, and they understand the situation at hand. And if that's the case, like Jalen Ramsey's out there on the trade market. And
the problem is with Jalen Ramsey is you have to have the cap space to pay him, which is why you have to get rid of Kirk Cousins.
But yeah, Kirk Cousins. But there are ways that they could make that work. And I think if they're all in, like their biggest need in terms of wins and losses next year, because a 3rd-round right tackle, while I agree with you, right tackle is a huge need for the long term of this organization, is not going to help you win next year. And they showed they don't really care about past 2026 with what they did with James Pearce, which I'm totally fine with. But they've got to figure out a way. To me, in terms of wins and losses next year, finding a quarterback, and I'm not saying a 3rd-round quarterback. I'm talking about, an actual guy with experience to where Mike Hughes isn't asked there to be your number 2 corner, because he was good last year, but I'm hesitant to say that's going to be a duplicated process this year, especially with the new defensive coordinator. So I think if they're as all in as they look, that's something that they're going to seriously consider. And if it's not Jalen Ramsey, like some sort of quarterback, and that's obviously after the draft. That's after the draft.
Here's the flaw, guys, right? Like, at some point you have got to make a decision, and this has been the Falcons' consistent problem for years. What's your identity? Are you an offensive team or are you a defensive team? Are you run first or do you stop the run? Are you pass first or you have a good secondary? Like, you need to build your team around something. Because right now, to your point, Alex, what you said earlier, a lot of faith here in Michael Penix. A lot of faith in a guy who's made 3 starts to be able to be the difference maker and carrying you over the top. Like, look, this isn't denigrating Michael Penix. He's not going to have a Jaden Daniels year next year, right? He's not leading this team to 11 wins and the playoff. Like,
that's what we're hoping.
I feel like that Rams pick next year might be 31 or 32.
I get aggressive, but okay, I like where your head is. But the point is like, statistically, he's not going to put up those type of numbers. I don't know that the offense is geared for it because, again, you're still dealing with the same coaching on the offensive side of the ball. It wasn't all that good with high-level quarterback or a higher-level quarterback theoretically in Kirk Cousins. So, again, when you're going to draft, right, this is going to help formulate who you're going to be and what's your identity. And so I think to a certain extent, we need to figure out, are they going to try to switch to being led by their defense, or is this still all about all the offensive weapons that you stockpiled over the last 3 years?
I'll tell you the identity. It's a custom-made 3-piece suit because all 3 of those men last night looked good while everybody else looked like crap. Good Lord, what is going on with the world? Nobody knows how to dress anymore. That's our identity. 3 well-dressed men.
Yeah,
Zinno.
It's going to be interesting. I'm very intrigued, but I do want to get into coming up after the break. I want to hear your take on Travis Hunter because I've got a very opinionated take on this. People were after 5 seconds of the draft, people are already calling the Browns winners. And when have the Browns ever wanted anything? I'm very hesitant to ever say they're winners when a deal like this goes down. So we'll talk about that after the break. Welcome back into Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord and Mark Zinno. The NFL draft kicked off with actually a little bit of excitement. It wasn't your typical. It was the scratch picks, like that's what everyone thought, the chalk picks. But we did have a trade from the Jaguars, and they gave up a ton to just move up 3 picks. It was next year's first round and more, but they did it for Travis Hunter. And Mark, I want to get your opinions on Travis Hunter. One, playing both sides of the ball at the next level, which it looks like the Jags are intent on letting him do. And just what you think about the Browns making this trade and people calling them winners of this trade for the haul they got for just moving back 3 picks.
I think the Jags are more losers than the Browns are winners. I mean, if your name isn't Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, what other receiver makes a quarterback better? This doesn't solve Trevor Lawrence being bad. In no way does it solve Trevor Lawrence being a very average quarterback in this league. I mean, like when they traded up, I'm like, oh, they're going to get Abdul Carter here. Like I'm sitting here going, they're going to take the best defensive player in the draft and continue to beef up that defense in a very winnable division with, oh, by the way, really good quarterbacks. Not really good, but you got a rookie, but then you have Stroud and I mean, like, it's like, what do you think Travis Hunter? He's not playing 120 snaps a game.
See, that's where I'm going to disagree. And this is what I want to say.
Okay, I hope he does. I hope he does.
Snaps a game. He'll be out of the league in 5 years.
I don't understand why people don't believe that Travis Hunter cannot play a significant, like maybe.
Why? Because he's not facing Utah. Because he's not facing Texas Tech. He's facing the Houston Texans and Will Anderson. And
you know what they said? They said that same thing about 18-year-old LeBron James.
They said the same thing
about
high
school anymore.
They said the same thing about Shohei Ohtani when he came over to Major League Baseball.
It's crazy. It's crazy, Zinno, until somebody does it.
And here's I want to just say one thing.
I'm not saying he's not going to play on both sides of the ball. But what I'm saying here, he is going to play. I'm not saying he's not going to play every single snap like he did at Colorado on offense and defense. Like he has to come off the field at some point.
I agree.
They took him more for his wide receiver prowess than they did his defensive back prowess. And that doesn't solve Trevor Lawrence being a very average quarterback in this league. So if you're the Browns, you acquired extra picks. What do you do with it? Kind of all depends. They're going to have a really good defense. Again, they're not going to have any quarterback play again. At some point, there was a part of me when it went back to 5 that I thought they were going to take Genti just because Nick Chubb is now not the Nick Chubb he was pre-ACL, and Stefanski loves running backs. Like he'll still hand the rock off to somebody.
See, I think the Travis Hunter pick was more about the team than Trevor Lawrence and getting a face of the franchise guy and getting a guy who really is he can be hang on he can be a difference maker on both sides of the ball. This guy is an alien. This guy is something that we have never seen before in this sport, even bigger and better than Deion Sanders. I truly do believe that. The pick has nothing to do with Trevor Lawrence at all. Has nothing to do with Trevor Lawrence. The Jaguars, specifically Liam Cohen, believes that he is the reason that Trevor Lawrence will be their friend. Travis Hunter isn't going to be a difference maker in terms of Trevor Lawrence. He'll be a difference maker in the overall team. I think that Liam Cohen is the reason why Trevor Lawrence is going to fail or succeed. And I do agree. He has not lived up to the billing of, Sunshine. So I agree with you there, but it's Liam Cohen. It's not really on Travis Hunter.
I mean, again, he's an offensive guy, Liam Cohen, right? Like that's why he's there. Mm-hmm. I have a hard time believing that they're going to have any measure of success if Trevor Lawrence doesn't return to the 8-game sample size that he had that one year that they made the playoffs, right? That's what you're trying to rebottle up and spit out now for 17 games and do it year after year. If they don't do that, this whole thing is going to sink into the Jacksonville part of the Atlantic Ocean. And it's going
which might be an improvement on that part of the area.
Yes, I get it. Although Amelia Island is very nice. Okay, I've been there. I give props up to Amelia Island. Little nice getaway.
No
spot.
Disrespect to Duval, but that place is awful.
Yeah, I get it. But so again, and the Browns acquiring more picks, is obviously what they need to do. But again, we're all still wondering, do we really believe the Browns are going with Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett as their quarterback combination going into this year?
No, they needed those picks for Kirk Cousins trade. Come on.
Yes, that's what it is. They're sending a first round back to the Falcons for Kirk Cousins.
I just want to end it with one last thing before we have to let you go, Mark. And it's just, I am infatuated with Travis Hunter. I am such a believer in Travis Hunter being an impact player on both sides of the ball, because people want to talk about bodies breaking down and all this stuff. He's not playing middle linebacker and running back. He's playing, this is an endurance thing. Yeah. This is an endurance thing. And maybe when he's 30, that endurance starts to shrink. But at this point in his life, it's about, can he run full speed? And guess what? It's a lot faster game. Colorado, the pace of game, the amount of plays that they're running, boom, 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 in the Big 12 than at the NFL level. Like, there's more plays in the thing. And he never got tired. He'll tell you he never got tired, but if you watch him, he's on the field every play. No one wants to throw to him. He's not out there making a bunch of tackles, and he's not out there getting hit hard. I don't think the body breaking down thing is as big of a deal, because he's playing a skill position. He's running around the football field. Like, that's what he's good at. And it's an endurance thing. And right now, I don't know how long it'll last. The endurance is unlike anything we've ever seen.
By the way, and I don't disagree, but can I tell you who I think got this, like, one of the steals of the first round?
Wait, let's do a whole nother segment on stuff we liked or disliked in the first round. Yeah, that seems a little bit.
That is fine. That is fine with me. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back into Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord and Mark Zinno. What you like, what you didn't like in the first round from any team in the NFL draft? Who wants to start us off? Mark, Alex?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Good teams just do good team stuff. Into the first round, Eagles get Jahad Campbell, Ravens get Malachi Starks, two immediate all-pro guys in defenses that didn't need them at all. I mean, it makes you sick.
The Ravens are taking, like, they're doing the whole, we're going to have the best back end in the league, and that's just going to make our pass rush better through scheme. We don't need to pay guys up front. We don't need to pay the high-level money that it costs for pass rushers, defensive ends, and interior D tackles. Now, we'll make them better through our coaching and scheme. We'll get those guys in mid and late rounds and pick up, guys off the scrap heap, because their back end is so good. It makes their entire team better. There's not a lot of franchises who can do it the way they do.
Their whole team is so stacked. I mean, the Eagles too. I mean, the rich get richer.
They can't win in the playoffs, but that's there. I'll tell you what I like the most. My favorite pick of the night, and it just made a ton of sense. I think it's going to pop off the page. And it's the Buccaneers getting Emeka Egbuka.
What?
Egbuka. Yeah.
I mean, you talk about a team that has more offensive
Chris
weapons.
Godwin, they just gave him a bag.
And Mike Evans and McMillan and Egbuka. I'll tell you what, that is an insane receiving corps.
Yes, and
how many can play?
and that's the point. Evans he's 32. He's going to retire soon. He's got 1 year left on his deal. And Godwin's coming off a major injury.
But they gave him a deal where they're like, "Oh, we believe in you." I mean, what was that? 3 for $60 or something?
But again, this is a team last year. Look, and least of all, I will own it. I was 100% wrong on Baker Mayfield. Like, the dude can now play. Like, what's the reason to believe he's not going to throw for close to 5,000 yards again? And who is going to – let me ask you a question.
He's unbelievable.
Right now, put the Tampa Bay offense up against the Falcons defense. How many points does Tampa Bay score?
Stop! Don't do that to us. It's a celebratory move.
Yeah, why do you got to do that?
It's a celebratory move today. We're not.
That's the New York in you. I mean, Jesus.
We're not supposed to be talking about that stuff until we at least lose a few games and give up 30 plus.
Anyway, so I really, really like that pick. I thought it was a very, very, very sharp move by Tampa Bay. And believe it or not, I mean, I'm curious to see what Matthew Golden, who many people think was the better receiver in this draft than Ted McMillan, what he's going to do in this Green Bay offense.
I was going to go to him. I was going to go to him in terms of things that I liked in the draft, and these are kind of differing things. I loved the Matthew Golden pick by the Packers. I loved Shamar Stewart by the Bengals, who desperately need some defense. Things that I loved because I think they're bad. I love Kelvin Banks being Jalon Walker's son going to the Saints. I'd love to see that matchup after what happened in college. Now I think he can be good. I'm just making a joke, but Jalon Walker did have his number in college, so that could benefit the Falcons. I also think Ted McMillan is not going to be any good, so I'm glad that the Panthers didn't go out there and draft Jalon Walker and instead got a receiver who I don't think is going to be any good at the next level. Can't get any separation, isn't very fast, really a jump ball guy. He's Drake London, but he's not Drake London. Like people are
it's more like Quentin Johnson coming out of team.
Yeah. I love that pick for the fact that he's in the division.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, doesn't really do anything else well. I mean, I'm not no draft scout. So
real quick, things you hated, like picks that you just thought were bad. I'll start with Ashton Jeanty. I don't get it.
I agree.
I don't get taking running backs, and I know we took Bijan, and he's worked out decently well. Yeah, I don't get taking running backs that high. Why are the Raiders? I know Pete Carroll, maybe Marshawn Lynch. I don't know, but like, how long is Pete Carroll going to be there? Are you really letting him take it?
He's a placeholder.
I don't see it. I
agree with that.
Well, it's on brand for what Pete Carroll does, right? I mean, still they run the ball. It's a big part of what their offense is, and how they slow the game down and how they keep their defense fresh. So I certainly understood it. Look, again, philosophically, I have said for years, there's only one way you draft your next franchise quarterback, and that is as high and with your first pick as possible.
Yeah.
That's in your own team, Mark.
So the idea that you're going to trade back into the first round because your franchise quarterback fell to you is not a draft strategy. That's luck, right? And luck is not a strategy when you go into the draft. Let's get lucky here, right? That's not how this goes. Yeah, you don't.
The Eagles and Ravens have been doing it my entire life.
No, that's the point. They haven't been getting lucky. They're just really good at scouting.
Okay. Maybe they're so good it looks lucky.
Yeah, I guess so. You could argue it that way, but you don't set this board of 32 players to go, oh, this guy fell. We may as well get him now. Why didn't you take him the first time around? If you thought that highly of him, then look, again, Daniel Jones was a bad pick. He was a bad quarterback, but philosophically, the Giants did it right. He was available at 6. It was their first pick. They thought he was a franchise guy. Fire. Don't hesitate. Like, I just disagree overall with the philosophy of reaching back and looking to, Lamar Jackson. Again, different time. 2018 feels like more than a decade ago. Mm-hmm. The entire NFL has changed.
It also works, once every millennium? Like, you're talking about one scenario.
So the point simply is that, like, I disagreed philosophically with what the Giants did. And furthermore, do I think that Shedeur Sanders has a higher ceiling than Jackson Dart? Yes, I do.
I think he's just better, period.
Well, there's an argument for that, but I've said all along, if you draft Sanders, you're drafting his potential. You're drafting his ceiling because they think it could be that much higher. What does Brian Daboll see in Jackson Dart? I don't know.
Well,
if you loved him enough to take him in the first round, why didn't you take him at 3?
Mara, I mean, he's got an absolute – everybody is tugging on different ropes up there in New York. I mean, you've got head coaches and GMs who aren't going to be here next year. You got a lot of situations on the defensive side of the ball that you like. Some things on the offensive side of the ball you like. And you got 3 different quarterbacks who are going to be gunning for snaps in training camp.
Well, they're cutting one of them. They got to cut Winston.
Well, we unfortunately have to let you go, Mark. Mark, as always, appreciate it. Hey, it was a fun first draft day. I'm sure we'll have you on soon, and hopefully the Falcons don't do anything stupid in the meantime. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.